will be joining us shortly, but we're joined by Mayor ProTem McFerren. He is here now, and Council Member Martinez and Council Member Parizek. Council Member Dominguez sent a text a few minutes ago saying that she got off work late and that she'll be here as soon as she can get here. So with that, I'll turn it over to City Manager Geertz.
Okay, so starting off with, we're going to talk about our strategic planning goals that we had established in December of 2023, and providing you an update to where we are today as we prepare to consider setting a goal session. And as you've seen in your council agenda packet, we do have an action item based off of what we go through tonight here in the presentation. So with that, I just thought it would be fun to get started with some historic pictures. I don't know about most of you, but I really do enjoy Phyllis Durbin posting historic pictures. And again, it's a reminder that, the progress, of course, now we have paved streets. That's about all the changes you can probably see there in those pictures. But more importantly, the downtown area is still a vibrant area for West Liberty, just like it was back in, I believe these pictures were from the 1900s. So again, we still have a vibrant downtown area where everybody likes to meet and enjoy events. With that said, too, the other thing is that what takes us forward in the future is the planning that goes with what we establish as far as growth. And so that's what we're gonna, talk about here, and what our planning and how it's paid off and our goals. And in addition to that, we've had some more growth on top of what we had established in those goals. So with that said, just wanting to give you the progress and on those and how they've aligned with the capital improvement plan. I think you've heard us lately speaking quite a bit about that. We will continue to update that and have that aligned with the budget. So as we're going through here, you'll hear me, talk a little bit more about capital improvement projects, the budget, and how that planning all comes together and how they have to align. So I just wanted to take a moment before we go into this one here. I just wanted to take a moment and reflect back on in 2022 and 2023, before we started that goal session. We had already been underway with street upgrades for Rainbow, Spencer, Maxon, and Naughty Circle. And then as of today, those projects have all been completed. Well, number two, it was still progressing back then, and but we've come there was back when I was a young child in the 1970s, there was a famous commercial for, I can't even remember, it was, I'm sad to say it, but it was a cigarette commercial for women. You've come a long way, baby. So I'm just saying we've come a long way. So I'm well number two, but not there yet. The GIS mapping at that time, we had stated it was 50% complete. And since we transitioned with some new supervisors in our utility department, we probably came about another 15%. They've been working with the Muscatine geographical team in through that. And so we continue. That's a huge undertaking. So there's multiple layers is what they're called. So it's everything underneath the ground, and it's also everything above the ground that they continue to work and add to that. LED street lighting conversions had been completed. And at that time we had some security camera installations done, and we've since added to that as well for public safety purposes and our building safety purposes. Vehicle upgrades were completed for public works. We had identified a trail for the Dutton, and that has been completed and has yet to be completed to connect over into Bicey. and park and playground updates. So all the playground equipment had been updated at that point in time in 2023, and a mini pitch at Wapsie Park. So those were just some things that we had already accomplished, and we continue to grow. So setting clear goals is not just planning exercise, it's a commitment to our community. It ensures that every decision, every dollar, and every project moves us closer to a shared vision for the future. And again, when we are looking at these goals, a lot of this has already came to staff and to city leadership through comprehensive plan, through your constituents talking with you. And again, social media provides, that communication as well. From there, so we're going to go through and we're going to talk about what we have accomplished. And just please keep in mind, I'm focusing on what we had and finalized in that 24-25 plan. So I put a copy of that in front of you. And so what you're going to do is you're going to look for Exhibit C. And I'm going to go through that first.
The final? Or
Yep, the final.
okay, or not the exhibit A with the
Nope, we're gonna go into Exhibit C because that was your top priorities at that time.
Okay.
So first of all, we're getting started with our top priority, being that emergency plan for city operations, finalize the emergency planning manual. Well, had we had known then that that is a big undertaking, honestly, there wasn't even a lot of templates out there. We did have Marshalltown provided us. Since then, there's been quite a few more templates because the auditors of the state are requiring each city, and that's, it's one of those situations where when you have a major weather event or you have a pandemic, then all of a sudden, it sounds like a good idea to have a plan in place. Shari and I both come from banking, and we were required back in 2001 to implement emergency plans for financial institutions. So, and we knew right away that there was a lot more to it than just, getting a couple pieces of paper and some pens and, an open sign to have a plan in place. So we do have a draft prepared now, and we have provided it to our supervisors. And our next step is to take that information and align it with our safety committee. They've put a lot of work into organizing contact names, phone numbers, and so align it so it's consistent with that. In addition to that, the Muscatine Emergency Management has just started the mitigation update process. And so ideally for us is to also keep working through that and align that plan to make sure that what we do here locally, it all aligns with the county level when we're ready to move to that. We have any type of an emergency situation. Because those steps all are in line with the federal. So for when we're working with FEMA, and we've had a little practice with that over the last couple of years. So again, we've been through a lot of the processes that we're going to implement into a policy, but that's just it. We need to have a policy and we need to have that in place. So I would, my notes would just say that we're at 20% of that project, and we'll continue to work through it, and hopefully to have a goal to have a proposed emergency plan prepared by the end of 2026. City council programs, again, give yourselves a hand because you met that goal. We did get the council conduct policy completed and approved, and city council meeting rules and procedures policy was completed and approved. The onboarding for new council members gave positive feedback and input for the clerk and myself to say going forward in the future with an onboarding process, to make sure that includes, touring the facilities, making sure that you have access to the tools and resources such as trainings, where do you find the codes, and that information. So as we're working through this next couple of years here, we'll take that input and we'll fine tune it into an onboarding or an orientation. We have one now, it just needs to be updated. And again, as technology changes, we have more access to be able to provide you that electronically versus a 3-inch binder that it's difficult to stay up to date on the paper side of it, but it's easily to update it through the electronic side of it to make sure it's current. Number 3 was the annexation. And again, I'll let you know that we're currently working with Wheelie director Phil Weiss and I went and met with Debbie Durham here a few months ago, and we had this conversation. And so we've started working with ISG and their community development. There'll be more information coming out about annexation specific to areas that we're servicing with utilities. But more important, outside of that, we didn't have in here is the annexation that we completed with Bicey, that we completed with Deepak Giri's property, annexation on Highway 6. So those were not even included in our goals, and those were things in addition that we were able to accomplish with 2 proposed housing additions, 1 housing addition already going up, and some commercial projects that are assigned or dated to come up here on Highway 6 once we can complete that annexation. In addition, then an on-call policy was developed within our employee handbook. Evaluations and matrix as well was placed into the employee handbook. Police officer retention program. Chief is here, and and Chief, you can talk to this a little bit. You had provided, but that's ongoing with policies and again, the benefits, but I'll be quiet and let you just speak to that real quick.
Yeah, officer retention, I mean, that's a huge thing at the chief's conference that Adroy was talking about is retention, recruitment and stuff. With your guys' help, we've been ahead of the game and stuff like that. We're just trying to, get our officers like the pay, the benefits, stuff where it should be, because it's ever changing. It's, I equate it to kind of NFL quarterbacks, because as soon as, one city moves up, another city tries to top them and stuff, because you're just kind of stealing from everybody. But we've done a really good job at bringing on, new full-timers on, and as well as part-timers and stuff, just because that helps alleviate the scheduling and stuff. It just makes it easier for people to take time off. City Manager Geertz recently brought up that we're gonna front load the sick time, because that made things easier, because a lot of the officers on the department have small kids, and when you go to zero after they pay out the sick time and stuff like that, it's kind of hard when all this is small kids and you're in the heart of flu season and stuff. So there's been, definitely gradual and continual steps to help, recruitment and retention for the police department.
Thank you, Chief. And that, I think it also rolls into employee benefits and review. Again, updating our employee handbook, getting the input from our city supervisors who were provided input from staff. As we all know, it's a competitive environment, and it is difficult for public sector to compete with the private. However, in order to be progressive, that's what's been recommended. We're trying our best to provide flexibility where we can. But even in the private sector, they have a budget no different than we have a budget that they have to work with. So I think a bigger part of it is working together as a whole organization, but also respectfully and understanding that the emergency departments and the library do not work the same traditional hours as the rest of the city, or the public works folks don't necessarily work traditional hours as the office administration. So the bigger picture is identifying how do we meet their flexibilities to their schedules and still create that consistency across the board. And again, with our updates to our employee handbooks, it's a good start. But I think it's an ever-changing process with employees today. And restarting the police officers reserve program. I know Chief has that on his radar. He's identified it. And again, there's just they've had some busy things with training and, one additional thing that popped in here outside of the reserve was the SRO conversations. And that's still ongoing and those align with grants. So I know that they have that on their radar and they want to continue working towards getting that reserve program back in place. The lead line audits, campaign communication outreach, to best of my understanding, we have completed all of the required steps up to this point. Every year, there's additional steps that we have to do in order to stay on track with the lead and copper. And on top of that, we've been currently working with ISG to identify funding opportunities for the city of West Liberty and our private homeowners. The other thing that we recently have done is with our capital improvement projects, we're also identifying if we're replacing, how can we get that aligned then too with the private property owners? So that way, when we're doing the work, then they have an opportunity to do the work to fix their private lines, to bring those up to date. Reviewing the electric generation study completed in 2020. Not only did we review it, but we went ahead and did another one here in 2025 that has been completed. And again, I know you've heard Cody's been here a couple of times and been keeping you up to date on all the things that we're looking at with the generation. And a bigger part of that, Cody and I had a really good meeting last week with Mid-American Energy, talking more about the natural gas project. The trail system plan to connect the city to improve walkability. This again is another ongoing, we have slated to work with our city engineers. The goal again aligns with the comprehensive plan to do an entire trail system that goes around the city. In addition to that, every year we try to allocate and write some grants to put a few more miles of trail down, and keeping in mind that that's the ultimate goal, is to get a trail system that encompasses the city of West Liberty. Along with that too, any type of new housing developments, making sure that we're identifying that those trails would connect to theirs. So we have that whole system of connection with trails, and a walkability study that was just done in addition to what we'd even talked about from these goals. The one thing that we didn't reach is city support for low-income childcare. That's a challenging one because federally that's a huge one right now. And so just looking at what the city can do is continuing to look at grants, continuing to look and see what's out there available that maybe we can access here for West Liberty. We're a pass-through, we work with the military families through Upwards, and it's that connection is continuing, speaking with them to see if there's anything that can be done here locally or any grants that are available to our daycare providers to help with grants for families. Staffing identified appropriate training certification programs to align with the positions. I feel as though each of our department heads have done a good job of identifying those and making sure. In addition to that, I know Adam, a lot of times, Chief and Shari and other department heads will bring to me some additional, whether it be customer service, whether it be just learning a little more information about how a city operates. Recently, at the Iowa League of Cities, we had a really good attendance for most of our supervisors attending the League of Cities, and were able to, learn the bigger picture of how a city operates versus just within their department. And I believe they learned a lot and fun by all. And again, we continue to pursue approach on grants, and I believe then that partnership with We Lead allows us to have access to individual through that partnership and through that funding, where they can focus on specific grants. I know that they are currently working with the police department on grants. They've also for housing development on grants as well. And some of these things that we had in our goals, grants as far as trail systems, any type of recreation activity, community block grants. The next thing we had here for 16 was update employee grievance policies and follow communication, and we accomplished that. That's in the employee handbook. Update on all job descriptions. We have not got to that yet. However, though, each one of our department heads every year on an annual basis, they're reviewing the job descriptions and we're identifying if it no longer aligns with the position, if we have to update it for what fits the position. So honestly, we've been working at them on an annual basis. And so for overall updates, it's more a work in progress based on our annual performance review and what the department heads review with their staff. Internships opportunities, we have not had had the time to work with the high school or even local community colleges to see if there's interest in internships. So that's something that we certainly can keep out there on our radar to review more in the future. The electric rate adjustment on schedule, and that I can say has been completed and we continue to do that well. On top of that, we didn't have the water and the sewer rates in there. We also didn't have the garbage, but those were goals that, in addition to what we were doing with our electric rate, we were able to accomplish in 24-25 as well. And the capital improvement plan, again, you've heard me talk about that several times, and we're currently in the process of updating that. And it would be our goal to have the CIP approved this year, the same time as we do our budget, because that, again, we'll get into talking about how they align together. And it's required of a city of our size to have a capital improvement plan and have that approved by council. So then that allows the staff that guidance, that allows you to have the knowledge of what we've approved for those projects, how we're planning to handle them financially, and how that ties to the budget that you're also approving for us to administrate on the fiscal year. Any questions so far? Yes.
On that capital improvement plan, you say that this year, 2025, by the end of 2025, we want to complete this, or 2026?
By 2026, and I'll have that coming up in the slides. I have a timeline. We already have an approved capital improvement plan in place that we've been working on since 2020. And so now with new city engineers, that's been something that all of our department heads and administration has been working with the new engineers to update. We started that project with V&K, and then what we're doing is having ISG come in, take over the CIP, and for the most part, we're not really changing. What we're really now down to is identifying from a budget perspective what projects that are going to work to stay in line. For example, the street projects, they're the larger part, they're going to have bonding to them. And the other one is the wastewater treatment plant phases. So those are the top priorities, but it doesn't mean that we haven't identified other priorities that you folks don't know about.
And then aren't we in a year or year and a half gearing up to do a comprehensive?
Yep, I'll be talking about that as we get through. Yep. So the final one was expansion of the youth sports programs. And to my understanding, we continue to expand on the programs. I know just this past month, we've had toddler basketball. In addition to that, they've got a few different age groups for basketball, and then flag football is due to start. The complicated thing, and this is the reason why we put before council, is not only the sports side of it, but we have recreation activities that we really want to balance out with the sports, because not all of the patrons want sports. They also want some additional recreational activities as well. So I think that it's not just about expanding on sports activity, but with the action that you folks took, we expanded on it to get some recreational programming, such as dads braiding hair and, can't think of right off the top of my head. I know there were quite a few of them. Some stretching classes for our mature individuals in our community that have retirement time, allowing the pickleball programming to go on in the gymnasium here or walk within the building itself. So, okay. Any questions? I'm going quickly through everything, but. So the next thing we would be talking about is the Exhibit D. And these would be the capital projects and equipment. So the number one project that we had on the Exhibit D was purchase the ELC building. Well, the nice thing is that we, not necessarily purchasing, but we were able to transition and trade for the value that was invested in the transformer to the sports complex and the work for the building that we're now setting in. And with that said, also you were able, in addition to that, we had some debt funds that we were in need of utilizing since we'd already levied, and we're able to put that investment back into the building for the roof to make it a viable building. So I will have some more information on during our council meeting about some things that are going on as far as community programming. And I know that at the time we were talking about that, we've had several conversations about recreation, sports, but also too, I mean, having, there is a need for certain community groups that need space, and funding is a little difficult when they're already a nonprofit or not-for-profit or fundraising group. So this has provided that resource for those individuals to establish community need projects, also like the University of Iowa, the free mobile clinics, which we have one coming up this weekend. So the 8th Street flooding mitigation project we have not got to yet. That'll be something that we'll be discussing with our engineers. The removal of the old fire station, that has not been accomplished yet. We certainly had waited on a couple of nice windstorms to get us going on it. I shouldn't say that, that's not. But we have not got to that process yet. The West Side Tower Main Loop is currently in the capital improvement plan, and we will be discussing financial planning for that in the future. Generator for the city. Again, I know we've been recently talking more and more about the generation, how we can increase the generation. Along with that, the project of bringing natural gas to those generators and eliminating. So I would say we're on track. Of course, we haven't completed it, but we're on track with it. The Black Start generators, one was to purchase a new one, a newer generator, but we were able to overhaul the existing Fairbanks and provide it some new life, and it still has, as Cody has told me, it still has quite a few miles on it yet. But we definitely, with our capital planning, want to plan in 10 years to purchase a new generator. So that way we could possibly move the Fairbanks one to a backup. The new pool, splash pad, and pool house, again, this was a part of the pool facility study that we did get completed. And as we know, we've been talking about the pool, and that'll be something coming up this year. And so that's definitely will be a potential to be moving forward in the next couple of years as far as goals go. The digger derrick replacement, we have that on hold with some other emergency projects that needed to be handled with the powerhouse. As we all know, not only did the roof need to be replaced, but due to the deterioration of the building, there was some investments that needed to be done in windows and the walls, and then some. We have some upcoming projects where we need to tear out the old water tower, coolant tower. So I did talk to Cody on that, and so that's probably going to be possibly in the next couple of years that we'll be looking at that. The new police station, they didn't get a brand new police station, but what we're doing right now is transitioning them into the entire city hall at this point in time. From a funding perspective, not having to, put a tax burden on the taxpayers by leveraging, a $3 million, $4 million bond. What we've done is we're utilizing this space here and allowing them to utilize the existing city hall. Replacement, so I know that the police rifles and shotguns were completed and updated. Financial commitment to the trail systems. As I've stated, we've done some grants. We've allocated local option sales tax money where we can. I think the next big steps would be identifying, like we said, is how we can do some more matching grants to extend that trail system around our city. We have not completed a dog park. The water plant upgrade to Elder Ridge and water booster station is still on to be discussed. Purchased a Bobcat utility vehicle to replace the Colorado. I don't believe that one was done. Vac potholes on trailer, Adam, I didn't think so. And new backhoe. We did complete that. And phase 2 expansion of City Hall, well, we're sitting in it. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to move into Exhibit E if we don't have any questions. So here was the final part of our report through collaborative discussion about what we could do for council members and department heads as far as communications go. And with that said, the first one, consider more meetings as council committee as a whole versus use of council committees. I believe that over 24, 25, we did do more council meetings as a whole. However, now within that growth, I see that we're able to understand how we could start utilizing committees more. And that's what we've done. We've started utilizing committees more versus as a council of a whole. So that may change depending on the elections, that's going to be, up to council at that time, how they want to proceed forward. But I would say, from my position, that I see a council that works together and has that discussion to say, we want to meet as a council as a whole versus a committee, or we prefer to have it signed as a committee. Prior to that, I think we were all kind of not really knowing, how it was best to proceed forward with a lot of the things. Because when we look back at all the stuff that we've accomplished and the additional items that we've accomplished, I believe that a council as a whole was a good place for us to start. And now having that experience, all of you have the experience that you feel more comfortable and confident going out to committee and then bringing it back. So any input on that, on how, because if I'm reading the room wrong, just let me know. So, but
Yeah.
I'd just like to say you all deserve a pat on the back because you've worked hard through that collaboration.
I think that's very much ongoing because we are, like you said, learning how to finalize and fix that communication so that we can report back to the entire council. And the next one was just talking about council taking more initiative with training through the league's municipal leadership, MLA. I know quite a few of you, have participated in MLA. I think the bigger part of it is just, from a city manager's position and the mayor's position is, working with each of you and identifying, or you identifying with us through the League of Cities, through trainings, what you would like to participate in or what you would like to have more of. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to all be with the League of Cities. We have ISU Extension. There's a lot of programming out there that provides a lot of education that's geared more towards like a smaller community such as ours versus a larger metropolis. So I think that's something that, we communication, we need to collaborate more on and see what
if you're not able to have the time to look for it, if we get something across our desk, that we make sure that we're sharing it with you. Okay?
Is there anybody going to the National League of Cities thing?
Yeah, not this year. Yeah. Maybe someday it'll be in our budget, but right now with our training budget, it's, yeah, not in the stars, so.
Okay.
Development expectations for communications with city management. Again, I think that that is another part of the growth that we've had over the last couple of years. Newly being into the position and still growing in the position and growing with you folks as well. So I would say that, you know, we're meeting that goal and we'll continue to grow upon that. City council guidance, council members could use more direction on what is appropriate, not appropriate to work together outside of the council meetings. Again, I think that that is more in line with that work, that to make sure that if there's training that we identify, that we can get in front of you, and then it's the initiative for you folks to find the time available, or you likewise communicating with us what could help your experience or help you as council members do your elected position as well. Always encourage open lines of communications for questions and concerns. I think a lot of these are all just that. It's just communication, and we're continuing to grow. A weekly and bi-weekly email update on what's going on at City Hall, city staff, city departments. Primarily, I've tried from the city manager's position, I've worked hard to provide extensive reports and try to do as much detail as I possibly can. If it is an urgent matter, if it's an emergency, to make sure that we're providing that communication, sharing the city manager's calendar so you know what's going on, where we're at, but and likewise the communication coming from you folks, setting up meetings with myself, going through things you have questions or need more information on. I think that's something that we can all continue to grow. I don't think it's a goal that's ever met. I think it's a goal that you're continuing to grow with each other. Continue the tours of all city departments. Once the weather gets nice, then we'll pick up and do some more tours. I know we were able to get quite a few in. I just got to go back. I think we only did the pool, but doing the bigger part of the parks and rec facilities, looking at all the playgrounds. So I do know we've got some additional tours that we can do. And just continuing that communication between council and city employees. Strive to be on the same page or vision for the good of West Liberty. Again, that's all a part of planning, and that's what we're talking about. And obviously we must have been doing some things right, because look at the goals that we've been able to accomplish. Look at the additional items that we've been able to accomplish. And so I would just like to say again, you know, good work, because that's what we're doing. Continue to listen to community members as their needs and wishes. I think that our council and our mayor, and I think our staff listen to our community members, our constituents as well. I think we even listen to those that are not living in the community, and we recognize and we try to do the best that we can do to serve them within our abilities. Any questions on?
Back to the, council training and thinking like, continuing education.
Mhm.
I know that the, League of Cities offers a lot of stuff online. So that might be something we could look at doing. If we can't be there, we can do a lot of it online.
Yep, they provide webinars that are recorded. And again, I think that if you're not able to find it, it's just making sure that we're communicating. Please reach out to the clerk and myself, and we'll get in touch with our contacts, and we'll find the information specific to, because it can be very overwhelming when you go out to the league and you're like, well, what do I need? What should I take training on? Because there's a lot of information out there. And I think sometimes just having, even just speaking among yourselves and saying, from your experience, does the budget versus, capital planning and zoning, how does these things all tie in, and would these be good things to participate in? So. Okay, alignment of goals. Just trying to stay on track here
Is that,
and not put you to sleep.
or where's the alignment of goals? What's
So alignment of goals is not in your packet, so now we're done with that, so.
Okay.
So now I just want to talk to all of you about, again, why doing the goal sessions, right? And as you can see, by establishing goals, it allows the city staff and the council to work together, to collaborate together, have communication, set those goals and the vision that align with our budget, and is the transparency to our taxpayers, our community members, to allow them, because we all know everybody wants, why don't we have a dog park yet, we need a dog park. There's a lot of work that goes into someone coming up and suggesting, a project. And not only the work, but it's the funding. And it's also being able to communicate why not a dog park. So those are the things that's important when we're going through goals and planning, is to identify with our public and say, here are our goals. And these are the goals that we'll be working on from this fiscal year for the next 2 years. And not only that, here's our capital improvement plan. And that's how it coordinates with those goals. And then in addition to that, we'll be updating the comprehensive plan and how that's the bigger picture of how that all aligns. And probably somewhere in there, there's going to be a dog park. But that allows us to all be able to be consistent when our constituents, like I said, our community members are coming to us and saying, I need a dog park tomorrow. Okay. Any questions about alignment of goals?
Did you talk, what, you don't have to say it again,
Yeah.
so, but did you talk about the annexation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Part of that is, again, alignment of goals, infrastructure growth. And part of infrastructure growth when we're looking at goals is a lot of our housing development that's occurring right now. So we know we have to upgrade the existing infrastructure, but we also have to be able to plan to expand that infrastructure to meet the needs of the housing growth. And then to make sure that the alignment of the goals all pull together in the quality of life within our community. So it's not just as simple as connecting more water line or more electric service to a home, but it's about the quality of life and the safety of the existing and the expansion of that. That's a lot. So, and so the bigger part of it too, when you talk about quality of life and we talk about safety, is the one that is probably the most challenging is within our general fund of our property taxes, right? Because the need for emergency services and to make sure that we have trained emergency service personnel, but at the same time, when people pick up the phone, we've all talked about it before, when you call 911, the expectation that emergency services are going to be there. But at the same time, we have people that are demanding that we have a brand new pool, and it's, again, helping you understand so you can help our public understand, and the transparency of legislation. They're changing how we handle those tax dollars. And so it becomes more and more important for us to make sure that we're aligning these goals with our budget. Bigger part of it too is the communication with our legislators to help them understand that when you have a dollar, this is how far that dollar goes. And these are the services that we have to leave out. And gosh forbid if it comes to the fact that we have to leave out emergency services, or we no longer have a library, or we no longer have a pool. So they're hard decisions.
It's an open, it's an open system, ideally, because we need to work with our environment in order to grow.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And again, this is where the fund annexation comes in. And a part of that is as our timeline goes forward in the future, we'll be talking about how the importance of annexation with the existing, and then the vision of growing for more.
Yeah, I think there just needs to also be just some dedication and trying to figure out what that information is for the folks that live on those properties. What will it mean for me? Like, and having like a black and white chart, like, here's what you're paying now in property taxes, and here's how it's distributed across the county. Here's how it would be distributed if we were to annex and you were being here, like, like it really.
It's a marketing
Yeah.
marketing plan, and the marketing plan and the tool, I should say, that we're currently working with ISG on right now is just that very thing, is taking your property and telling the story about city people that are currently paying city taxes, and what does that go towards, and the opportunity to annex in and look at what you're paying in additional utility costs versus what your property tax is going to look at. But the bigger part of it is the annexation and the valuations. We have a wonderful historic inventory of property in West Liberty. However, that property value doesn't equate to a brand new property value. And the brand new property values that would be annexed in has the potential to lower, even for them, to lower that tax rate down. So it's a, I don't know if you can say taxes and win-win in the same conversation. I don't even know if that's a fair thing to say. But at the same time, is like when you bring up tax valuation values to your inventory, then based on what we're focusing on right now, would just some early entry of looking at those valuations to what we need, we would be able to bring our tax levy down. But we can't do that, and because we're have to be maximized to be able to meet the quality of service that even the individuals in the rural communities are enjoying.
Yeah, and I don't know if people fully understand that they're able to go to the pool and at the same rates, they're able to call 911 and get service,
Yeah.
because they live close to us, but like just
Yeah.
I think, yeah, we just need to communicate that better, and I'm hoping that when it's all said and done, they'll be like, why didn't we do this 20 years ago?
Yeah.
I think it's important to look outside the box, because I firmly believe that in order to show that we need this growth, we have to rely on the history, because a lot of people now live in developments that are in the county. And if they want to utilize city services, from simple like economics, recreation, history that we have now, they're going to have to, in order for the city of West Liberty to grow. Because if the city of West Liberty shrinks, those services are not available anymore. But your county housing developments grow bigger. They won't be able to utilize it, because we won't be able to finance city services and city growth economically. So I think that's important to let the general public know, from in city, outside city, that you got to look at it from a different perspective.
I know, I believe I understand what, the picture being is, keeping your services local versus going to a larger corporate
Right.
private
I
company.
mean, they're so used to being able to come to town to shop or utilize, rec, museum, library, all that stuff that our city provides. Well, if we can't maintain fiscal responsibility to garner more funds in order to supply these services, then it will just dry up and our town will do like many small towns do, and it won't be sustainable. And we're just gonna be one giant housing bedroom community in the county for Iowa City or Muscatine or Davenport. We won't have our city like we know it, like we're used to it.
Yep, and that is a very consistent message that we're hearing, at many of the state level, meetings when it comes to rural Iowa rural development, Iowa housing. I mean, that is, and I know that these folks have been shouting this from the rooftops for several years now. But unfortunately, it isn't until your city closes its doors, it's like, how'd that happen? So yeah, being
Yeah,
proactive
We
and
don't wanna see
being,
that.
yeah, being proactive and getting more information out there and being, and giving that information, and
Right.
marketing it. So again, people see things in a visual way so they can, they need the data in front of them in order to make, not only for them to help them understand, because we should, right? But
Change
likewise for you as elected officials, more importantly too, because you're the ones that are telling the story. You're a bigger part of marketing our community. So, and that's where we'll continue to work on those tools and resources, and I'll say marketing, so we can provide that information and the importance of why, because most people get, oh, don't talk about that. I'll move out of town if I hear that annexation word. And it's like, well, you got to give us an opportunity to explain it before you move out of town.
and understand the
Yeah.
whole like aspects.
That you can be a part of something bigger. Yeah.
And ideally, if they would make the choice themselves, come together to make that choice,
Mhm.
it's probably gonna be a lot smoother than having to find a council that is
Yeah,
just
it's-
saying, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
we have to.
Yes.
Well,
Volunteering is always better than
Yeah,
forcing.
change hurts, but it's necessary in order to be sustainable. That's just what it comes down to.
Yes. So here I just some quick pictures of, we've got the trail system here. We know one of our projects coming up, more conversation with the pool, our housing development with Bices. We've got the library with the capital improvement fundraiser, our downtown area. I have some notes here, but believe it or not, over the last 3 years, collectively between developers, the city, and the state's economic development grants, we've invested a little bit over $1.9 million in just the downtown area. That has left us 11 apartments, 6 commercial buildings. And the bigger part of it is the safety that we've now been able to establish in our downtown areas, because the buildings, most of our inventory down there was unsafe for individuals to be occupying. We have had more storefronts open in the downtown area, which supports local option sales tax, property tax, but also meets and serves what community members, being able to go to our downtown areas and buy gifts, or, to be able to shop and get a coffee. I mean, just within our own downtown area, in a walkability community that we've been talking about, is just adding more to that quality of life in West Liberty. A well-structured capital improvement plan and budget are more than financial tools. They are strategic instruments that transform community priorities into tangible progress. Something to think about there. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm sorry, I'm kind of rushing through here. Just a timeline here. So our first phase right now, what we're talking about is updating you from the final priorities that were completed in December of 2023. On our agenda tonight, we'll talk about next steps. Do we want to set another community or strategic planning or a goals planning session? Do we want to continue to just work with what we have? Or do we just want to do nothing and just, shoot from the hip and keep rolling? The next phase of that would be, it aligns with our budget, and part of that, our budget for 26-27 is also the capital improvement plan being progressed along, so it aligns with our budget. Setting out, 9 years from where we are today with those plans. In January and, December of 2026, making sure that we align with those goals that we've got submitted from our department heads, or what we've talked about with our goals, and putting them into the 26-27 budget. And then the next steps coming to January 2027 is that, that our strategic goals are operating and they're within the budget and we're moving through them. We've got the approved budget and the CIP to carry us through. And then updating that comprehensive plan by 2027. So that's the alignment of how that all comes together. That's a really progressive timeline, but I know we can do it because we've already got some good footwork. We're already headed in the right direction. You have a very dedicated staff that are actually more comfortable working from this versus do nothing. But if it is do nothing, I'm confident in the staff that you have here at the city that they will do something. So I'm gonna quickly go through here, just some focus areas. The fiscal resilience and budget strategies. We have to be, every year, it's more and more creative work that we have to do in order to make the budget. And it's not just with the general fund anymore, folks, it's the utilities as well. And last year we had to cut out a lot of capital equipment, and this year, more than likely, it will have to just prioritize and make a decision on what equipment has to be versus what we need to roll over and get new, and we got to make do for workforce and employment costs. I mean, we've talked about that within our budget every year. Again, we're competing with the private sector. But the one thing that we continue to offer here at the city is that flexibility and this passion that our staff members have to serve this city. For the most part, everybody likes to have an increase in their wages, don't get me wrong, but the benefits and just being able to have that support from leadership for what they do, and knowing that they're making and creating a better place for their generation. Insurance liability, again, don't have to tell you costs. The infrastructure and modernization, the growth and annexation strategy, just like we talked about, we know that that has to be a priority. We can't just go out and say, hey, we're gonna annex you in. We've got to put the work into it to make sure that those property owners understand. And most importantly, comprehensive plan gets updated, because that's gonna be a part of that marketing plan. So thank you. Thank you for your continued commitment. Thank you for your hard work. And we'll see where our next steps are from here.